Hello dear students, welcome back again to Chinmoy's YouTube channel. So I think you have all gone through the previous 3 lessons which I have already posted. Please go through the lessons which I have posted earlier, that is transport of food and minerals in plants, reproduction in plants and reproduction in humans. So this is the 4th lesson as per your curriculum. So today we are going to start with a brand new lesson, that is ecosystem. So this is part 1. As it is a very vast topic, so I have divided it into 2 different lessons. So we will be discussing in 2 different parts. So let us start with today's episode. Now, what are the learning objectives of today's lesson? So today we are going to discuss about what is ecosystem, what are the biotic components of an ecosystem, what is the interdependence between the organism, that is food chain, food web, and we are going to learn about pyramid of numbers. So dear students, please do subscribe to my channel if you want to know more regarding this lesson, not only this or more lessons which are there in your curriculum. And as I am teaching as per ICSE curriculum, you need to stay subscribed and stay tuned to my channel to get the updates properly. So let us start with today's episode. So here first we should discuss about what is environment. So the word environment means what? That is the surroundings, which refers to a variety of living and non-living elements of the environment. That is, it refers to the whatever surrounding we are living is our environment. So in fact, everything that surrounds us, which is affecting our life, which is affecting the life of any organism, whether it is a plant, whether it is an animal, whether it is a human life. So anything surrounding us or influencing us that is affecting our life is, or our human life, is called the environment. So let us take an example of a lion. It is living in a forest, and for him the forest is its environment. So a forest is innumerable things like living things like insects, animals and plants, and whereas the forest is having many non-living things also, such as air, water, soil and minerals. So there we can say that there are some living and non-living things surrounding us, surrounding our environment, surrounding that all the living things or non-living things which are affecting or influencing our life is the environment. So while the living things are the biotic components, like the animals, like the plants, the forest, the fisheries and the birds are the biotic elements of the environment, whereas the non-living or the abiotic elements are water, land, sunlight, rocks and air are the abiotic elements or the non-living elements of the environment. Now let us see what is ecosystem. Now what is ecosystem? So when we come to its definition, we can say that an ecosystem is defined as a community of life forms in a concurrence with non-living components. So it is a community of life forms in concurrence with the non-living components interacting with each other. So an ecosystem is defined as a community of life forms in concurrence with the non-living components interacting with each other. So we can tell it in other way also. What is ecosystem? An ecosystem is a structural and functional unit of ecology where the living organisms interact with each other and the surrounding environment. So in other words, we can say that an ecosystem is a chain of interactions between the organism and their environment. So how we can say that there is a chain of interactions between the organisms and the environment? Now we can say the life of an organism, it is affected by the living and the non-living components around it. So all living components or organisms who are staying in a given area, they are always interacting with each other. So we are telling that the living organisms are interacting with each other. So how? They are interacting with each other as well as the non-living components of the environment also. So such as we can say that they are interacting with the air, water, soil, sunlight and so on. So this all constitute an ecosystem. So in an ecosystem, we can say that there is a continuous exchange of energy and matter between the living and the non-living components of an ecosystem. So this term ecosystem was first coined by A.G. Tansley, who was an English botanist. Okay, is it clear? Now this is the definition of ecosystem, and this in general is a what is an ecosystem we have told. So you can pick any one of these to write what is ecosystem. So if you're in your exam the question comes what is ecosystem, you can write this one as well as this one. So both are correct. So which one is easier for you to memorize or recall? You just learn that one, practice that one and write that one for your exam. So this is very important actually. So next we come to the components of the ecosystem. So what are the components of the ecosystem? There are two components of ecosystem. One is the biotic component, that is plants, animals and microorganisms are the biotic components, whereas air, water, soil and climatic factors such as sunlight, temperature, humidity and wind are the abiotic components of the ecosystem. Now, what are the biotic components? Now, once all the living organisms in the environments, namely, we can say that, namely the plants, animals and the microorganisms form its biotic components. Now, depending on how they obtain their food, the living organisms can be divided into the three groups. So, what are the three groups? We can see that how they obtain their food. On basis of that only, on the capacity of obtaining their food only, they can be divided into three groups. So first ones are producers, second ones are consumers and third ones are decomposers. Now depending on these three groups, we can say the producers, consumers and decomposers, there are three types of biotic components depending on the food, how they are obtaining. So let us move on the first one, that is the producers. So producers, so green plants, these are the producers. Why? They are producing food because these, we can say that all the living organisms, we are needing energy for our survival. But the ultimate source of energy on earth is the solar energy or the sunlight. So solar energy or sunlight is the ultimate source of energy. So only the green plants, they are having the ability actually to convert this solar energy and make their own food in presence of sunlight, water, minerals and carbon dioxide. Now, so as they are making their own food, they are producing their own food, they are called producers or autotrophs. Is it clear? So they are producing their own food, so they are called producers or autotrophs. Now next we are moving on to consumers. So consumers as the term refers, consumers means those who are consuming the food. So living organisms, they do not make their own food, but they consume either plants or animals. They are called consumers or heterotrophs. So they are called consumers or heterotrophs, that is who are depending on the others on the plants rather for the food. So consumers, they are not only depending on the plants, they are depending on animals also. So those who are consuming, those of us are consuming are consumers. So first we have categorized again these things into four categories. First one is the herbivores, that is animals that eat green plants are called herbivores, or they are called the primary consumers. Okay, that is deer, horse, elephant are the examples of the herbivores. So these are consumers of the primary level. So primary level consumers. Now we are moving on to carnivores. Carnivores are animals that eat the flesh of other living organisms, that is they are secondary consumers. So these are primary consumers. These are secondary consumers, that is for example lion, leopard, tiger, etc. Now next comes omnivores. Like these animals, they eat both plants and animals, that like human beings, we consume both plants and animals. So we are omnivores. Cockroach, bear, these all are omnivorous animals. Next comes scavengers. Scavengers, that is hyena, vulture and jackal. So these scavengers are what? These are also carnivores, but they feed on dead animals and so they are called carnivores. Okay. Now, after the consumers, we come to decomposers. So in addition to the producers and consumers, there are some microscopic organisms that feed on the dead bodies of organisms and the decaying organic matter. So they are called decomposers. So decomposers, they break down the complex organic compounds present in we can say that present in the remains of dead plants and animals. So they are breaking down the complex organic compound present in the dead plants and animals into the simpler substances. Okay, and decomposers, what they do? Their main function is to keep on recycling the nutrients. Okay, so whatever nutrients is present in the dead plants and animals, they break down it into simpler substances and they release that nutrients decaying organisms to the environment. So these decomposers are recycling the nutrients. So these decomposers are recycling the nutrients. So what is their main function? They are recycling the nutrients. So decomposers are called the nature's scavengers. They are called the nature's scavenger because they are recycling the nutrients. Now we are moving on to the interactions between the biotic components. So what is the interaction between the biotic components? The biotic components are linked to each other primarily by the food and the form of food chains and food web. So there is a series of organisms that are linked to each other through a process of eating and being eaten in the form of a food chain. So both food chain and food web, so these two are helping them to interact with the biotic components. So see here we have taken an example of food chain. So the producer is grass. So from the grasshopper is eating the grass, that is the consumer, that is the primary consumer. From that the frog is eating, so it is the secondary consumer. So frog is being eaten by snake, the tertiary consumer, and the final consumer is the hawk. Okay, now after this bird dies, what is happening? It is being decomposed with the help of fungi, bacteria and all other microorganisms, and they are being returned again in the form of nutrients. Recycling of nutrients is happening, and they are called the nature's scavengers. Okay. Now in the previous slide we have discussed that what is a food chain. So what is a food chain? It is a series of organisms that are linked to each other by the process of eating or being eaten. So by the process of eating or being eaten. So eating or being eaten. So that comprises of the food chain. So let us see these two examples. This one I have explained earlier. So let us see this. Trees are being eaten by deer and deer is being eaten by tiger or lion, sorry. And this again they will decompose. When they are decomposing, we can say that either that first if they die, they can be eaten by the hyena or the vulture and all, that is the tertiary consumer, and then their body is decomposing. Now next you see this is also a food chain. The flower is being eaten by the butterfly, then frog. Butterfly is being eaten by frog, the snake is eating the frog, and the eagle is eating the snake. So like this the food chains keep on shifting from one to another. Here the flower is being eaten by the small fishes are being consumed by larger fishes, and these birds are feeding on this larger fishes. So this is continuously food chain. So we can say that this is, this is a forest, like we can say that this is forest ecosystem. Now we can say that there are several like grass, insect, frog and eagle. This one we can say that it is a grassland ecosystem, and this is a water ecosystem, you can say. So if this is a forest ecosystem, that is, it is mainly in forest, this type of ecosystem we see. This type of ecosystem we are seeing in the grassland. So it is a grassland ecosystem. So there are types of ecosystem, right? This is a grassland ecosystem, and this one, as it is seen mainly in the aquatic environment, like in ponds, in rivers and all, because there we can see the crane, the fishes and the small fishes also, and these are water plants, water flowers. So we can see that it is an aquatic ecosystem. We can say that it is an aquatic ecosystem. So these all are different types of ecosystem. So this is also a grassland ecosystem only. So now we will move on to the next, that is the food web. Now what is a food web? Till now we have told that what is a food chain, and there are different types of food chains, that is depending on the grassland, on aquatic ecosystem and on forest ecosystem. So what is a food web? So most consumers, they have more than one food source. Is it clear? Now you can say that if we are taking the example of frog here, so frog is eating caterpillars and frog is eating butterfly. It is having so many food. So the frog is eating this dragonfly also. Now snakes, they eat rabbit, they eat lizards. So snake is as well as lizards, mice and rats. So snake is eating everything. So if we are taking an example of snake, it is feeding on the rabbit, it is feeding on the lizards, mice as well as rats. So rats are also here. If we are taking an example of rat is also being eaten by hawk, it is being eaten by wolf, and it is being eaten, and rat is eating grasshopper, and rat is eating we can say that this corn plants and also they are being eaten. So thus a plant and animal may be a part of several food chains. So several food chains are interconnected to form a food web. So what is a food web? It is an interconnection of many food chains. So if in one sentence we need to describe what is a food web, so we will tell that all the consumers have more than one food source. So all the food chains are interconnected. So frog, it may be eating, it may be dependent on many foods, whereas snake is also eating many foods. Vulture or eagle is also eating many foods. So they all have different sources of food. So that all food chains are interconnected to form a food web. Is it clear to all? Now here comes a very important part of your ecosystem, that is flow of energies. Now energy flow, most of the organisms on the earth get their energy directly or indirectly from the sun. So only the green plants, they can trap the energy from the sun, and all the food chains start with plants. So solar energy is transferred through all the food chains. We can say that green plants, they are converting the solar energy to chemical energy, what is present in their food. So the solar energy is being converted to the chemical energy which is present in food. So some energy gets stored in plants while the rest is used by them. Is it clear? So some of the energy which is produced by the conversion of that whatever solar energy they're receiving to chemical energy, some of the chemical energy is used up by the plants while the rest is stored in them. So some energy gets stored in plants while the rest is used. Now when the plants are being eaten by herbivores, now the energy stored in them is transferred to the herbivores. Again, the herbivores are using some part of their energy in their activities and storing some part. Now this stored energy passes on from first, we can say that, primary consumers to secondary consumers, or from the producers to the herbivores and then to the carnivores. Now as gradually from one level to another, this energy is transferred or flowing from one level to another, that is from the primary producers to the primary consumers, to the secondary consumers, and to the tertiary consumers. So this energy is constantly flowing from one level to another. Now we will see that there is a decrease in the amount of energy flow. So whatever energy was there in the primary producer, it will gradually reduce when it is passed on to the primary, to the secondary, and to the tertiary consumers. Now you will see the amount of energy that is transferred from one animal to other, that decreases in each level. So it will keep on decreasing from the primary consumers to the secondary consumers to the tertiary consumers, and so on. It keeps on decreasing. So let us see how the energy decreases. Now see this pyramid here. If this is the first tropic level producers, so if it is having 1000 kilocalorie of energy, so it will move on to this like 100 kilocalorie. Now this will be 10, this will be 5, and this will be less. So apex predators and vultures, they will gradually there will be a gradually decrease in the amount of energy which is being transferred from one level to another. So this is the producers, this is the primary consumers, because all are using some part of the energy and the rest is being transferred to the another. Transferred means if they are consuming these plants, they will be having that energy. If they are consuming this animal, they will be having this. So from the first level, it will move on to the second level, then it moves on to the third level, then to the secondary carnivores, then to the vultures, eagles, lions, and all. And lastly, all this energy, it is being transferred to these decomposers. And these decomposers, they are then breaking the complex things into simpler one. Okay, so these are all the passing of the energy from one level to another, that is tropic level and pyramid of numbers. So this is the producers, this is the primary consumers, secondary and tertiary. Thus the flow of energy, that is the solar energy, which has been converted to chemical energy by the process of photosynthesis. So the storage of some energy in the plants and some is passed on to the next. So like this only it continues. So the green plants or the producers, they are fixing the solar energy. They are fixing the solar energy in the first tropic level, we can say. Now herbivores or the primary consumers, they are constituting the second tropic level. For example, snails, rabbits, deer and goat. Now carnivores, that is the secondary consumers that feed on the herbivores, constitute the third tropic level. That is, we can say that snake and all. And the large carnivores or the top carnivores or the tertiary consumers, that is the fourth tropic level. For example, we can say that tiger, lion, eagle and all. So these are the different types of tropic levels which we have discussed. So this tropic level, in the highest tropic level, we will see the least amount of energy is present. So however, we are moving on from the one tropic level to another. So the number of organisms also decreases as we move on up the apex category. Okay. So if we see that here are 10 to 12 plants, here we will see that 5 to 6, here we will see that it reduces to 3 to 4. So gradually as we move up this pyramid, we will see that there is a decrease in the number of organisms also. So this is all about the ecosystem first part till the biotic factors, biotic components of the environment. So in the next video, we will be there with the abiotic components in detail. So for the upcoming video, abiotic components in detail, stay tuned, stay updated, and subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more regarding this lesson as well as many other lessons, many other important topics which I am going to teach in as per your curriculum. Okay, so please study this lesson and wait for the next part, that is the abiotic components. Thank you.